rebirth of radio.
Radio that's in tune with its people.
In tune with the listener.
In tune with you. That's what radio is all about.
You are radio.
And radio is you. So,
you deserve radio that reflects you and your world, your lifestyle,
your aspirations,
and your ever-changing music taste. Radio that keeps its finger on the pulse.
Radio that delivers up-to-date news and well-researched content.
A listener-led radio station. Radio that doesn't speak at people,
but radio that listens and engages you.
The rebirth is here.
Radio that loves with you,
cries with you,
celebrates with you.
Radio that understands you.
Our purpose is to use the magic of radio to inspire the human race.
That's why we do what we do. We listen to inspire. UFM.
UFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to broadcasting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful to children, does not amount to hate speech, and contains no gratuitous violence or explicit sex. If you think we're not living up to the code, you may inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa, P.O. Box 412365, Craig Hall 2024, or email to bccsa@napsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. The UFM News Hour with Motlhaping Modise.
Tuning in to UFM News Hour, a special broadcast, as I said earlier, with the Chairperson table discussions. We're coming to you live from Johannesburg this evening with the Gauteng Provincial Legislature's governance cluster. These are the three chairpersons in the governance cluster who will be speaking to us this evening on the show. And you can be part of this discussion, UFM 898 on our social media platforms, including on UFM 898 to 103.9. 89.8 to 103.9 is our FM dial, including on channel 842, that's on GSTV, and streaming on ufm.co.za. And again, seated next to me is the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, John Moodey, who will be speaking to us, and the other two ladies, two of her colleagues, Matshidiso and Vuyiswa Jentile, will join us a little later as we continuing with this discussion. John, good evening, and thanks for making time. Welcome to UFM.
Yeah, good evening to you and to your listeners, and thank you for having us here.
Thank you once again. And I want us to start with what the Gauteng Provincial Legislature is. This is not a provincial government. Talk to us about what the provincial legislature is and draw that distinction between the government and the provincial legislature.
Well, you know that South Africa has three spheres of government. They are all independent and they are all equal. Mm-hmm. And those three spheres are your national government, your provincial government, which is your legislature, and then of course your local government, which is your councils. Mm-hmm. So each one of these three spheres has its own function and role that it plays. Yeah. Yes, it is part of government. It is the provincial government of Gauteng. Mm-hmm. However, there are certain mandates that are carried out at the legislature level. That is the sole purpose and domain of the legislature in the province. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you have the province also acting as an agent on behalf of the national government. A case in point would be, for example, education or policing. Let me talk about policing because that one's better for you to understand.
Sure.
Because there's a dual purpose when you're looking at education and the others, health included. But policing is a national competence. The legislature, in a sense, only has an oversight role to play. the legislature does not have authority over the policing functions in the province. Similarly, the province does not have authority over the local governments except through COGTA, which is a department on its own, that is traditional affairs and cooperative governance, as well as through the treasury, because they get their funding from treasury. So national will give money to the province, and the province then disperses to your local governments as such. And because they act as an agent, they then have oversight over the spend of that money. So when you look at education is run as an independent, in a sense, entity in the province of Gauteng. Yet they get their funding from national, but they use their funds, and they have to then subscribe also to the policy, national policy. But they run the Department of Education as a department, as a government, provincial government. Similarly, you have it with housing, and you also have it with education, housing, and with health as well. So these hospitals and so on that you have in the province belongs to the province, and they have to see to it, and they have to run it properly and efficiently and effectively, that is. So in a sense, it is a government. Right. Now, people sometimes don't understand the difference between your metro police, your roads that needs to be fixed, your electricity and so on. That is local government competencies. Right. And therefore, your local council has to support those type of functions. You have roads, for example, that belong to the province. The roads department, they have to see, those are all your roads that has the R, that starts with the R, R28, R21, etc. That is regional roads, which is in provincial roads. M's, any road that starts with an M is your municipal road, and N stands for national. So you have a conflation sometimes of a provincial road that goes over into a national road, which then also crosses over into a council, a municipal road. And you have a traffic light there. Who is the one that's responsible to look after it? So it's those type of things that these three spheres of government have to then work through and find a way forward and collaborate to ensure that services happen. Similarly, you have some clinics that belongs to local government. You have clinics that belongs to the province, and of course you have a hospital that belongs to the province. And there's hospitals that are national, because those are so-called academic hospitals.
So basically, as the body, it's you who holds the executive accountable. It's you who ensures that the government delivers to the people.
Well, you have committees that will oversee the different departments.
I was asking on behalf of the committees.
However, SCOPA is the tool that the provincial government uses to ensure that we have oversight over the prudent spend of the public purse. You understand? Because you're working in collaboration with the Auditor General and other Chapter 9 institutions such as the Public Services Commission. We even have a relationship with the SAU. So when we find an issue happening that involves money, etc., we can then report. In fact, we are obliged to report it to the SAU for them to follow up. So in a sense, we're looking at SCOPA as, the legislature using SCOPA to exercise its constitutional mandate. And I'll read this to you. To ensure oversight, accountability and good governance over the provincial public sector, which is all those departments that are the actual service delivery departments.
So I want us to then go into the latest committee reviews, the 2024-2025 audit outcomes. You, in your statement, have recorded, mix of recognition and alarm following the outcome of that outcome. Why is that?
You see, for a long time, the provincial government has been pushing to try and get clean audits. Now, when you have a clean audit, it means that you are complying with regulations. That is your auditing practices, your good accounting practices, as well as treasury regulations as to how you are utilizing your funds. It does not necessarily translate into good service delivery, It means that you have a good account keeping with your books. So having said that, once you also get a clean audit, it is then also difficult for you to then maintain that standard. So what has happened in Gauteng is that in the 2023-2024, the province had 11 clean audits, and in the past financial year, which is 2024-2025, it has dropped down to 10. So when you get that, it's a regression. It's a 10% regression. So it is something that we need to be concerned about. You cannot move forward and then move backward again.
And then backward at the same time.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
So what would you ascribe that to? What are the contributing factors to that regression?
Well, it's fundamentally it's rooted in the failure by management, that is senior management and executive management, that is, to sustain basic financial disciplines, and that dangerous complacency and inconsistency in terms of monitoring internal controls. And then you have the added issue, which is a matter of a laxness or a type of averseness to exercising accountability and disciplinary measures to be taken against officials who are not doing their work, quite frankly. And this is unfortunately a situation that we find many of our departments have fallen into over the years. And to correct that type of behavior, it is sometimes just it's negligence in many regards. It's a lack of accountability. As I said, it's a lack of consequent management. And at the end of the day, wasteful and unauthorized expenditure is something else. But also just the cooking of the books. You'll find, for example, that they have to go out to tender the minute it is over $1 million. Right? Then what they do is they break down those tenders. They break down the actual project to below $1 million, and that way they then go on what you call not even a tender process, a contract process, where you can then just go to a service provider, and the service provider then gives you the work. That then allows them the latitude to be able to move funds around and to manipulate the system for their own gain. If you go, for example, to, and I'm gonna mention something that all of us are faced with. And it's a case in point even at local government level and at national. If you go, for example, to the Department of Finance in the city of Johannesburg, but go to any of the other departments and go and see where they park their cars, and see where middle and entry level management parks their cars, and see the amount of Range Rovers, top class motor vehicles. And you ask yourself, how can these persons earn, afford this type of car? And going to have a look at it, and going to look at where they're living. They're living in gated estates and things. They don't even apply for promotion because they're in that cushy situation. Now, the challenge is this, just quickly. You see your executive employees, your HODs and so on, they are employed on a 5-year contract. We as public representatives are on a 5-year contract in a sense, because it's every 5 years you change. Those guys at middle management and just into senior, not executive management, they have a permanent job. And they'll tell you straight out, you're here for 5 years, bro. You're here for 5 years. And things just continues to go on.
But we'll come back to you and look into how resolute is your committee in trying to address some of these challenges, because this regression, as you said, it's not serving the people of Gauteng at all. But let's invite into this conversation the chairperson's roundtable discussion, Vuyiswa Jentile. She's joining us as the chairperson of the committee of the petitions, or the standing petition standing committee. Vuyiswa, good evening. Thanks for joining us on UFM.
Evening, and thank you so much for inviting us.
Sure. Talk to us about your committee. What do you normally do when you are in office? Do you sit in the office and wait for petitions to come, or what do you normally do when you arrive at the work?
Okay, so typically we've had in this administration in particular a backlog of petitions that were emanating from a new system that we're testing, which is the e-petitions. So in this particular administration, we then had those petitions, but also because the petitioning system has been so efficient for residents in Gauteng. There are continuous petitions that come. But I think very important because we're charged with the responsibility of oversight.
Yeah.
As and when we do oversight and people are raising issues that they're concerned about and they are indicating that they've been really everywhere and they feel that they were not taken serious, or rather they were just not listened at all, would then advise them on a process of petitioning, and then they would petition. But just safe to indicate that there are continuous, like high number of petitions that are coming, volume of them, and we then every time we sit as a committee process those petitions.
And we'll talk about the numbers, including what the people of Gauteng are actually complaining about. Why so many petitions that they are sending through? But I want to take you a little bit back into the role and the mandate of the Petitions Standing Committee. What are you really looking into as the committee?
So we look into all grievances that are raised. And we then serve as a barometer between a department and a petitioner who then raises the petition. Safe to indicate that it's service delivery petitions that relate to the provincial government. Previously, we're dealing with municipal petitions that would have been exhausted at that level and then would then include COGTA. But so if you are to look into the work that we do, basically every day, it is to process those petitions, it is to do oversight, to really ascertain that some of the issues that the petitioners are raising, which by the way extends to the mandate of the legislature, because we must do oversight. But also recently we would have also, because we are charged with the mandate of doing laws, we're lawmakers, so we must make law. And where we realize there are gaps in terms of our process and the systems, would then look into a process of amending some of the, because our work is informed by policy, it's informed by acts. And if, for an example, in this case, the Petitions Act, of which we just recently adopted about 3 months ago, and signed and enacted into law. So we have a range of responsibility, I think, centered around oversight, centered around accountability, because when we then receive a petition, we must adopt and then send to a responding authority. Let's say, for an example, Department of Health. You then send to the Department of Health and you say, give us a report. That is part of the accountability, because we're then getting a sense that this is what people are grieved about. Are you aware of this? Give us that is then part of the accountability. The oversight would be for us, even before the decision that would take around the report, to go do oversight and to really ascertain that these are the issues vis-a-vis the report that we get, and then we take a decision then how to then move forward.
I was actually about to get to that, as to whether, how do you ascertain that the petition that came through, those concerns that are raised by the communities are genuine? Do you go there also to see for yourself and to satisfy yourself as the committee that this particular community is facing these difficulties as outlined in the petition?
Indeed, we do that. Maybe if I could just take you through a process of petitioning. So you've got an e-petitions where you would then interact with the online system, where you submit all your sufficient evidence. The system will then direct you. But the instances, for an example, one calls and then say, look, I've got a crisis, and I would have I just want to give an example, and I know the example may not be necessarily relevant for the provincial government. I say, I've got a sewer that is sitting here, I've been to the municipality, I've been everywhere, there's no commitment to help me, and would then send a team to then say, for an example, this particular petitioner has raised these issues and is not able to come to the legislature. So there's capacity in terms of our petitions officers who then go there and ascertain if that qualifies as a petition, because not every grievance qualifies as a petition.
True.
So we do have a team, and then they will look at the merits of the case raised, look into what our law prescribes, which is the Petitions Amendment Act 3 of 2025, if indeed it's a petition that we can work on, it's in our purview as the province. And if it's not, we'll then redirect you and say, please go to the municipality, exhaust all avenues at that level. And if you then have a proof that I've been everywhere, I've appealed and I feel I'm not heard, then we do, to a certain extent, serve as an appellant structure to then say, look, COGTA, can you then intervene? in relation to these issues
Sure.
raised.
Before we take a break, I want to talk to this new act, the Gauteng Petitions Amendment Act number 3 of 2025. What key improvements did this amendment introduce?
I think key for us, and I think we must indicate this, that we are very excited about this act because it makes our work more flexible, but also it enforces us to be accountable to the petitioners that raise issues. So it's the issue of the timeframes. Ordinarily, back in the day, with the Principal Act of 2002, people would just submit, executive would sit with reports, none accountability at all. Now, when you have a law, because an act is a law, and if you are not, if you decide not to be in line, you know, with what the law prescribes, you can always be held accountable. So it's the issues of time frames. If we submit a request for a report in relation to a petition, we give you 30 days. You must be able to answer in the 30 days. But if you are unable to answer in the 30 days, you must write to us formally as a committee and say, look, I'm working in the matter. This would have been a petition, because we still work on petitions on 2013. And you can imagine this is the new administration.
Sure.
A responding authority would be someone new. They may not be privy to some of the issues that would then speak to that. But also very important, it speaks to functionality of municipalities, because to a certain extent, municipalities would then relax a bit. The reality is that residents of Gauteng do not belong just to a province, they belong to a ward. A ward belongs to a municipality. And there must then be accountability in terms of intergovernmental work that must be done. A councillor must be able to work. A chairperson of a committee in the level of the municipality must be able to work. And the province as well must then be able to intervene when all fails.
Thank you. We'll talk about some of the petitions you've inherited from the previous administration and how typically it takes for the committee to address petitions and avoid backlogs, for example. But I want us to take a short break. When we return, we will continue with our discussions this evening, the Chairperson's Roundtable discussions. We're coming to you live from our Johannesburg studios this evening. This is a special broadcast of Youfm News Hour. We're speaking to the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on SCOPA, or the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, John Moodey, and also who just spoke to us, Vuyiswa Jentile, who is the Chairperson of the Standing Committee or Petitions Standing Committee this evening. After this short break, we will continue with this discussion. Stay tuned.
The Youfm News Hour with Motlhaping Modise.
Africa Dumela, Kisolofela le Siame. For the last 6 years, you guys have shown us amazing support, and on behalf of everyone at the station, we would like to thank you for listening, and thanks for caring.
For all the dreamers out there, this is a testament that it's possible. A message from Mokoni, thanking you very much for the support, and let's continue doing this in tune with you.
Half a dozen reasons to smile. Happy birthday to the station that's in tune with you.
Hashtag 6 years with you.
My name is Nelson Kesa, and I'm a human rights defender. Let your work reflect a world where dignity, safety, and respect are non-negotiable. The future is listening. Young boys are watching. Young girls are hoping. Use your light to show what true manhood looks like, not in domination, but in accountability and compassion. Don't call me brother if you are only present for the applause, but absent when it matters the most.
Don't call me brother. It's a Youfm initiative against GBV and child abuse. The Youfm News Hour with Motlhaping Modise.
Welcome back, and thank you once again for staying tuned to Youfm News Hour. Don't forget, you can be part of this discussion. Send through your questions to the chairpersons who are joining us this evening on the roundtable discussion. As I said, John Moodey is the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, and Vuyiswa Jentile is the chairperson of Petition Standing Committee. We have on the line the chairperson of the on committee on scrutiny of subordinate legislation, who is going to talk to us, Matshidiso Mfikoe, who's joining us on the line. Ma'am Mfikoe, good evening to you. Welcome to UFM.
Good evening to you and to your listeners and my fellow colleagues there. Thank you very much for hosting us.
Thank you so much for joining us. You leading a rather unique committee. I'm not sure how many of us know about this committee on scrutiny of subordinate legislation. How best can you describe this committee? What is it about?
Thank you very much. It's a very unique committee, and I believe the institution is also getting to understand what is it all about.
Yeah.
But the role of the committee is basically to scrutinize and ensure that regulations made by the Gauteng departments, different departments, are lawful. Firstly, they are fair, they are subscribed to the constitution, and they are properly implemented. Regulations would be a simplified laws and acts that the departments need to implement, including making it easier for some of their own policies to be implemented. So basically, that is what we do.
Yeah, and what has your achievements been so far since the inception of this committee? Hello, Matshidiso?
What?
Yeah, since the inception of this committee,
Yeah,
what has been your achievement so far?
Look, we've done quite a lot of beautiful work. Firstly, we have made sure that the regulation on gambling are done through the Economic Development Portfolio Committee. Of course, those are done by the Agriculture Department. Has a entity called the Gauteng Gambling Board.
Yeah.
Firstly, then we have also done what we the uniform patient fee schedule, which are fees that patients must pay in our hospitals, pay for mobile services, including for ambulance services.
Yeah.
Also, the regulations on making sure that the school tolls.
Okay. Yeah. So we're losing you there. We're losing you there. Yeah. Please hold the line. We're losing you there, and I want us to correct that line. I'll ask Robert to see if they can connect you to a different line so that we can be able to hear you. But I want to go back to John. So as the standing committee, earlier I asked about, we spoke about the challenges, the regression that you recorded in the previous financial year. And I asked about the resoluteness of your committee. How resolute is SCOPA? How do you ensure that you hold anyone and everyone who accounts and who use public funds accountable?
You see, once we have liaised with the Auditor General and we get the report from the Auditor General with regard to their findings for the different departments, we then, as a committee, go through those reports. We take those findings, we ask questions of the departments, written questions, and we ask very pertinent questions. If they're talking about money, for example, that has been unauthorized expenditure, we ask, what has the accounting officer done?
Yeah.
We don't say, what has the department done? We say, what has the head of department, the accounting officer, done to ensure that the CFO, that's the chief financial officer, has corrected this? What steps has the CFO and the accounting officer taken that emanates from your internal audit that has highlighted this thing, yet it hasn't been complied with? So we ask those very pertinent questions, holding the executive to account. We don't just blanketly say the department, because then we're not asking a specific from a specific person. Now we do it. Once we get those responses has to speak to the issues we've raised, and it needs to be able to be answers that addresses those specific issues. If we then interrogate and we analyze those responses, if those responses doesn't speak adequately to addressing the issues raised by the Auditor General and our questions with regard to the remedial action that we want to see happening, we then call that department in for a hearing. And believe you me, we don't have kid gloves when we're there. we ask those questions. We'll ask a question and say, so who is the CFO? This one. Who is that person here that signed off that contract or that tender? Yes. Why did you do it? We hold them accountable. And once we've gone through that process, we then draft reports on each one of these departments in terms of the Auditor General's findings, the Public Services Commission's findings, our concerns, because everything wasn't addressed. And even if they've given us an answer, and we're not too happy with that answer because it doesn't speak to the issue, we then put it down as resolutions, and we then table it in the House. Once we table that resolution in the House, they are bound by law to follow through on that resolution, to correct it. Now, the issue comes with, so there's a resolution, so what? We have a tracking resolution process. As a committee, our staff tracks that resolution. They have to give us a response by, in this case, the 27th of February next year. All the departments give us responses to those resolutions. They send it back to us what they've done or what they're going to do, etc., their steps. And we then follow through. On a quarterly basis, they have to report to us as to what they are doing to correct it. We then liaise with the relevant committees as well that deals with those departments, so that we don't act in isolation. We act in consort with our colleagues for them to also follow through, because they have their different departments that they have to oversee as well.
But I want to understand then, where does the political heads, whether of the department in a form of MEC or the municipality, the mayor or executive mayor comes in? Because you're talking about the CFO in this case. Which questions are being asked to the political heads of these departments and the municipalities?
You see, where the accounting officer hasn't done his or her work, that is when you ask the MEC, MEC, what have you done to correct X, Y, and Z? But these were the findings. What have you done? What are you going to do? Where's the consequent management? We even have gone to the point now where we're asking pertinent, very pertinent questions with regard to that particular tenders, with the Auditor General's findings on this. How many people have been found to be guilty, or how many people are suspected thereof? What is the processes that have been followed? If there is money involved, what action has been taken? Because once upon a time, the answer we'd get is just abroad, they left, they resigned or they retired. We are now saying you go after the money. If it is money involved, you lay criminal charges against those people and you go after the money. There is an asset forfeiture unit that will go after the money and take it. Now, the law has been tightening up. We see the Madlala Commission and so on. There is a recent court of appeal case where the Auditor General has charged the municipal manager for 120 odd million rand of wasteful expenditure because it has recurred. In Nelson Mandela Bay, the city manager and other officials, including the contractor, have been found personally liable to repay over 300 million rand on a road that was inadequately, or should I say poorly, resurfaced and so on, or it was a bus rapid system. So money is no longer just, you don't just take the money and you walk away with it anymore. No ways. We will come after you and we will ensure that you remember your MEC is a political head that has to ensure that those departments carries out the mandate of the government, right? True. So that we have made promises. When I say we, all political parties have made promises to our electorate. Now that manifesto becomes policy. They have to implement it, and that's why you have your executive to oversee and make sure that government policy is carried through. And if they don't, of course, then you start applying the pressure on them, and ultimately you then speak to the Premier and say, Premier, these people are dropping us. Not just you, they're dropping us as a government. Deal with it. Sure. And we have seen the changes that have been happening with accounting officers recently.
So we'll also come back to that, including these regressions and how you're hoping to correct it not to persist even in the current financial year. But to you, Vuyiswa, I want to go back to the level of the municipalities. Are individual municipalities empowered to review and to update their own petition processes?
So as a committee, upon the promulgation of this new Amendment Act, we would have undergone a process of visiting different municipalities. Of course, even on the process of making the law would have invited the municipalities, would have gone to the citizens in different municipalities. But what we've done now is to go to municipalities, because remember, municipalities to a certain extent, we don't have a purview, and we can't impose some of the processes to them.
Yeah.
But we've met different committees, almost all, actually we've done all municipalities in the province, and we requested to get their policies. Some of them are outdated, some of them don't have even efficient committees that have been really working. And we then said to them, we want to undergo a process of harmonizing your policies. Of course, from one municipality to it's going to be to another, it's going to be different. But the thinking is that you must then have an efficient system of dealing with your petitions. You must then be able to respond within a prescribed or time determined by yourselves. And you must then take this process to your people and say, are you comfortable with how we've been petitioning? And try to a certain extent align to the Act. Because if you do not, it becomes extremely difficult to navigate around petitions when they then come from municipalities. It's how is your reporting system? How do you hold? Because there is usually with municipalities, councillors feel they can't hold MMCs and mayors accountable because they are only just councillors who must sit in council and go back, whereas they also belong to committees. So we've done that process. We've done and we have engaged COCTA. We then said, COCTA, look, these are some of the issues that we're noticing. Inconsistencies in terms of how petitions are handled. Some of these don't even have policies that are strong enough to hold executive, being the mayor and the MMCs, accountable and to respond to petitions. And COCTA has committed to a process wherein all municipalities will review their policies, speaking to different issues that affect each municipality, such that we then have a system that is then able to respond to petitions timelessly.
Yeah, talking about responding to petitions timelessly, it was my next question, or the question before the break, whether you have a time frame, typically how long does it take to respond to a single petition?
So it's prescribed by the Act. We are supposed to have responded, or rather, must have received the report from the responding authority in 30 days. And then upon a ventilation by the committee, if we're satisfied on the response, or if we don't have any further questions, you would then write to the petitioner. And if the petitioner is then comfortable with the response, or rather they do see some sort of progress in relation, because some petitions you would submit in this 30 days, the responding authority would jump and start working, So by the time the report gets to be ventilated at the level of the committee, then there's then work done. And when ourselves as the committee communicate to a petitioner, the petitioner would say, actually, there is work done. And we would then do an oversight to ascertain that indeed we are then satisfied, or rather, if we don't do an oversight, a petitioner would then say to us, I'm actually happy. Would then propose to close the petition, and if they are comfortable, they would just not respond, or rather they would just acknowledge the closure, and if they are not, they must then respond in 21 days and say, actually, this petition has not been adequately handled, and I feel that it must be kept open on this basis. But also there would be a process of appeals where you say, look, you have responded and you are saying, this is a report that you are getting, but I feel that there is more that you must do. I've got information that can empower you as a committee that the department has not even given you. And in cases where we would have not done oversight, would then go and meet with the petitioner and say, but so what is this information? How can it then help us? Because remember, you submit a petition on the 10th day. By the time we come back to you on the 40th day, there would have been so much that has happened. And then you then give us that information. Would then, if we feel that it's adequate, work on it.
Yeah, and I'm laughing because it seems petitions can be used to scare these officials to make or to ensure that services are delivered. Because if they receive, there's a petition, they jump in, get the job done, so that they avoid coming to answer to you.
Yes, most definitely. So that is how, a democracy, when it matures, you would have a lot of people that raise these issues. And we want to encourage our citizens to raise issues through a petitioning system, because a petitioning system means that you don't have to burn a tire for you to be heard. You then have a documented series of evidence that I would have gone here. And when it gets to us, we then say, actually, we're not satisfied, for an example, with your report, MEC. We have a right, as per the Act, to subpoena or rather call the MEC to appear before the committee
Yeah.
to then say why are residents, for an example, that had been seeking for a stadium and there would have been a project approved over a certain number of years, but this has not been done. And then they must then commit to a process or rather give us a report in terms of the work that is done. So it is a most powerful tool that our people can use. It just needs to be properly understood.
Yeah.
And I think it has been used over the years and it has proven to be a great tool.
And we'll talk to the number of petitions you received in the second quarter of this year and how many of them were processed and how many of them were rejected from those petitions you received. I want to check, Matshidiso, are you still with us? Thank you for staying tuned. Okay. Go bona la fa re sentse re sena Matshidiso Mfikoe yo e leng karolo ya dipuisano tsa maitsiboano, Chairperson's roundtable discussions, coming to you live from Johannesburg studios in Gauteng. This is where we having discussions with chairpersons in the governance cluster at the Gauteng Provincial Legislature. Earlier on, we invited you to take part in this roundtable discussion, and I want to check if we have questions from the listeners directed to SCOPA, including the chairperson of the Petitions Standing Committee, Vuyiswa Jentile. Let's take the first voice note this evening directed at SCOPA.
Some of us are paying our services to the Merafong municipality, but rainwater is cutting off our water as the municipality owes them billions. Can SCOPA agently help regarding our water cuts off?
Okay, we did not get the name of the listener. Let's take another voice note, also directed to SCOPA.
Good evening, listeners and everybody. My name is Linda Mukhale from Cosmo City. What I would like to understand and get feedback on is the financial impact that it took in the establishment of Mapanyaza. I know a lot has been said, but I want to understand how does it go far as to impact the financial standings of the Gauteng residents, and is it something that we're going to see continuing from the financial aspect of it in terms of how it has affected people and going forward?
Thank you so much. Let's respond to those two questions, John. Let's start with Amapanyaza. I knew that question was coming. How is this affecting the finances of this province?
You see, initially, when the crime prevention, the traffic wardens, they are now traffic wardens, was initiated, was established. They were established as crime prevention wardens. That budget was raised via an adjustment budget. So the legislature looked at, Treasury looked at the finances, and through the Premier, of course, redirected funds from non-core business in other departments, okay, and redirected it so that you were able to then fund this particular project, if you can call it that, because the Premier had identified the fact, and we all know it, this is gangsters' paradise.
Yeah.
And there had been a plea to the SAPS for them to improve the number of policemen deployed into Gauteng, which is an ever-growing population, yet our police are not being upscaled. The numbers are not sufficient. So this was as a backstop to be able to be a multiplier effect into the fight against crime, in collaboration with your Metro Police and your Traffic Police. So those are your law enforcement agencies. So of course we found that the public protector had found that that they were instituted irregularly and also not in terms of the Constitution. But here's the thing, she brings a remedy to it. And she says within a certain period of time, first 60 days, you need to do X, Y, and Z. Within 180 days, you have to do X, Y, and Z, so that you are able to comply with the law.
Yeah, but it did not have any impact on the finances of the province.
It is one of those. It is one of those functions that has to happen. Okay, so of course, when you have a budget, an overall budget, and you have this project that is a very dire need, there is a need. I mean, I have seen where those Amapanyas, as you want to call them, have been properly supervised and deployed, right? I've seen the difference that they've made. I've personally seen it, the difference that they've made in the fight against crime. So there is that need. So when you have a budget and you have this need, of course you have to kind of downsize and cut across so that you are able to fund.
Sure.
Yeah. So there's no extra funds that have come in. It's just a realignment of funds. Now, you can talk about the fact that they can say it's irregular and so on. It's irregular in the sense that the establishment and so on was not according to the law. But that does not necessarily mean that was wasteful expenditure. And it does not also mean that money was stolen. It is money that has actually been used, and I come back to it, for a very good purpose. We just need to regularize it.
Okay. And I think I missed the question from a listener in Mirafum.
Okay, I got it still.
Sure.
He spoke about paying for water and for lights.
Yeah.
Yet ESCOM comes and cuts off because the municipality is not paying ESCOM. Now, that is a local government matter. However, it does affect us as citizens of Gauteng.
Yeah.
It does not just happen there, it happens all over. In fact, Gauteng legislature owes municipalities for electricity and other services. Let's be honest about it. So those are things that, from a SCOPA perspective, we have to hold intergovernmental accountability, hold them to their feet to the fire so that they need to be able to pay. The Auditor General is being owed money by the department. Let me get back to that particular aspect. They have also got an equivalent to SCOPA at municipal level, which is your Municipal Public Accounts Committee, MPAC. And we as a province, and my particular committee, and myself in person, have gone around to try and upskill these committees across the province, similarly as you have done. And together with the Speakers Forum, we have been having workshops. And unfortunately, in many of these instances, Merafong is a case in point.
But basically,
they're not actually they're not doing their work properly because they don't understand the toolbox that they have. You're correct in stating that they are, in a sense, too scared to hold the executive to account. And that is what we need to speak to about the maturity of public representatives. And there is a move afoot.
But if MPAC is afraid to hold the executives there accountable, are you able to step in?
Through Kochta,
okay,
and through Treasury. So the MEC for Kochta had indicated, I want to give you this baby. I said, I can't. Legally, I can't. But if I get your mandate, if you call SCOPA in particular myself, to go and assist, we talk about cooperative governance. At the end of the day, I'm not just a resident of Johannesburg or Gauteng. I'm a resident of Johannesburg because I live in Johannesburg. I've got family in Merafong. If local government doesn't work, government doesn't work.
Sure. And let's take another voice note. We're fast running out of time. I'm getting worried now. And these ones are directed to Vuyiswa Jentile.
Sanbonani unokuthula ukhulumayo la eBekestal Ward 29. My question is directed to the Petition Committee Chairperson. Our concerns here is the sinkhole damages in our area. We submitted several petitions requesting government intervention, but there has not been any feedback. How can the committee help us to follow up on these petitions? Please, please.
Thank you, Nomvula. And let's take another one. Okay, let's respond to Nomvula in Bekesdal. They're talking about sinkholes. You are aware of that?
Quickly, we are very much aware of it. We have received a few petitions in relation to this matter, and we have redirected the petitions to the NCOP, the Select Committee, because it's a national crisis, and as a province, to a certain extent, there is work that is done by COGTA, and we are also involved in the work that is done. So each and every time, it's quite very worrying because you then get a little number of petitions when there's already a petition, for an example, that you're already working on. I know that the NCOP was in around the Western area a week, 2 weeks ago to meet the residents, and now particularly in Carltonville, there's a process that is undertaken and there of moving some of the residents. Some are not happy with the process. They're petitioning the process to say, I can't move from a 5-room house to a government house that is, and here I was making business. So it comes with a whole lot of things. So there's a number of petitions. Some of these petitions come when already there's a petition already submitted that deals with that particular area. Would then use that as a precedent to just note that these are some other areas that are not hit.
Let's see if we can squeeze in one last question to Vuyiswa on petitions, please. Okay, and let's talk about the number of petitions that were submitted to you in the second quarter of this year. 37 of them were sent through. How many were processed? How many were rejected?
Okay, so it's 37 that the committee has processed. So you are likely in the system having more, but this is the 37 that has been considered by the committee. Okay. So there's an administration process of collecting all petitions, but there is a process where a committee must sit, prescribed by the law, adopt and reject. And we've adopted around 21 across all departments in the province, and those are municipal petitions that date back before we would have promulgated the new act, would then send to municipalities through COCTA. And then we've rejected 16 which were outside the purview of the committee, and this also relates to some of the petitions, because after the promulgation in August, we're no longer dealing with petitions from municipalities. We're saying municipalities, ventilate yourselves, because we have capacity at that level, because you can't just wait for the province to do work. And we've rejected some of those, and these are the ones that would have been submitted after the promulgation, but we're still taking those that would have been submitted before, and we're ventilating them as a committee. We rejected 16 on a number of bases prescribed by the law. But safe to indicate that we're seeing a lot of petitions that come from the city of Johannesburg, the metros in particular, the Western and Citybeng. They're not coming as much as we would want them to come, but also males that petition over females, because we look into those statistical issues, and we feel it's not a true reflection of the realities and the struggles of our people. So we do want to encourage all citizens to petition. That process of a lot of people who must sign, the act doesn't speak to that. You are aggrieved as one person, petition. And then we'll then be able to look at it.
I believe some of the questions that were directed at you, including John, will be sent through to your offices, because we couldn't take them because of time. But I want to wrap up with you, John. So as the SCOPA, where to from here in ensuring that all the accounting officers account for every little cent that has been spent in Gauteng?
SCOPA doesn't do auditing. Firstly, the auditing function lies with the Auditor General South Africa, and they do a sterling job. Those people are on the ball. What we have also started implementing as SCOPA in this new term is that we have spoken to Treasury, and all those departments now have their internal risk and audit committees. They, on a quarterly basis, they do interrogations. We want those interrogations, their findings, to come to SCOPA, but more so to go to those relevant departments, committees, because every department does submit quarterly reports, which is in terms of their spend to their annual performance plan. We want the audit as well, the audit committee's reflection, so that you can look across the board and see early detection, because otherwise you're working ex post facto, 18 months after the fact. We want to nip it in the bud during the course of the year. And we are also going to the process where we will be asking the chairpersons of audit committees, not asking them, we'll be subpoenaing them to hearings if they don't do their work.
Thank you so much, John. It's a pleasure having you on our studio together with Vuyiswa. Thank you so much for joining us on this Chairperson's Roundtable discussion this evening. And as I said, some of your questions will be directed to the relevant portfolio committees to get answers. Motlhaping Modise, and it's been a pleasure being in your company this evening. Stay tuned to UFM. Khosi Tsimega is up next. Good evening to you.
Music so soothing, conversations so relaxing. Khosi Tsimega, only on UFM. In tune.